What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
Welcome to episode 1 of CANdid Conversations, powered by Echo Housing and Community Development. I'm Merrick Korak, and I'm honored to walk with you as we launch a space for truth-telling, trust-building, shared learning, and tangible impact across Southwest Indiana. This is not a traditional update or a PR push. CANdid Conversations is built on the understanding that residents are the experts of their own communities, and lasting change happens when their voices shape the solutions alongside transparent and committed partnerships. You'll hear from frontline workers, policy shapers, neighborhood advocates, and most importantly, the people with lived experiences and their solutions. Since this is the very first episode, I hope you'll bear with me. Even though the show was called CANdid Conversations, today's going to lean a bit heavy in storytelling rather than a back and forth dialogue. That's because we can't dive into the deep conversations without knowing the history behind it, why it matters, and how we move forward together. To help paint that picture are two guests that I'm happy to kick it off with. I want to welcome Savannah Wicker, CEO of Echo Housing and Community Development, who will walk us through how the Collective Action Network, or CAN, was formed and why it matters. And Kim Armstrong, Echo's Communications Manager, who will lead the Resident Report, a recurring segment where she will share what we're hearing from residents in the community. Thank you both for joining me on this first segment, and feel free to jump in at any time with questions, with concerns or comments.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Glad to be here.
So why now, why here? Quite frankly, because our community has been yearning for this. We've heard it from parents juggling multiple jobs and housing insecurity, from teens navigating trauma and not knowing how to ask or find access to mental health care, from elders who've seen empty promises come and go without progress, and from change makers from the grassroots to City Hall who want to do things differently. That's why we're launching this show, to hold spaces for voices that matter. Now, before we go any further, I want to share a little bit about why I'm here. I serve as the Community Development Director at Echo Housing and Community Development. My job and passion is about building bridges, not just between agencies or programs, but between people, between systems and stories, between what's broken and what's possible. I work at an intersection of systems and people, and I help convene the Collective Action Network, which you'll hear more about soon. This is a space where residents, service providers, government agencies, and grassroots leaders align around shared goals and shared accountability. If you're still foggy on the definition of community development, in plain terms, it's about improving the places we live, work, and raise our families with the people who live there, not to or for them. It means fixing up housing, making neighborhoods safer, supporting local businesses, creating spaces for kids and families, and making sure everyone has access to things they need, like jobs, transportation, education, and healthcare, the things that make up our quality of life. And here's the key. Community development isn't just about building things. It's about people. It's making sure residents have a voice in what happens on their block, in their neighborhood, and across the city. Because who knows it better of what a community needs than the people who call it home? So when we talk about community development on this show, we're talking about working together to strengthen neighborhoods and the larger community, just physically, but socially, emotionally, spiritually, and economically, so everyone has a chance to thrive.
Merrick, if I could jump in real quick with a question. I've had several people ask me why this platform, why CANdid Conversations?
No, that's a great question. Really, at the end of the day, and this stemmed out of the Collective Action Network Summit, but when it's all said and done, I don't believe that we have spaces where residents are being that driving force for positive change in our community. We see those in pockets throughout our city, but this is an opportunity to raise awareness and advocacy for residents who are being change makers, who are embodying the hope and change that they hope to see in their communities, and this gives us an opportunity to share that in real time with real people.
Awesome, thank you.
So I didn't come into this work with all the answers. I came in with the deep belief that no one sector, whether it's law enforcement, education, housing, or healthcare, can fix issues alone. We need each other, we need residents at the center, and we need spaces like this, where we can name the hard stuff and still find a way forward. That's what CANdid Conversations is here for, to build that culture of belonging and alignment. My hope is that these conversations can be raw and unfiltered. I also understand that we all come from different lived experiences, and for that reason, I hope we can agree with these rules of engagement. Be respectful. Every voice matters. Be open. It's okay not to have all the answers. Be honest. Sugarcoating won't fix what's broken. We need to be able to identify and work through what is real right in front of us. Be hopeful. We're building something better together. If we don't have hope, what do we have? And so keep that in the forefront. Those who are listening, those who want to participate and be on and have these conversations with us, we would love to hear from you. So whether you're a resident, a decision maker, a student, or someone just trying to better understand your community, this is a space for you. We value that and we look forward to it. And so I know I mentioned Savannah and Kim joining me today segment, but I'm going to put them on the spot for a minute. I have some questions.
Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
Savannah, when you think of Southwest Indiana's biggest challenges, what conversations have we been avoiding? I'm going to come out with the heavy hitters right from the jump.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So I think one of them is equity. I think we've avoided talking honestly about equity, not just in terms of race or income, but in terms of access to housing, to behavioral health care, to transportation, and to opportunity. For too long, we've treated those as technical issues when they're really about fairness and shared responsibility. And not just shared responsibility with the individual trying to access it, but the partners and stakeholders that provide those types of services. Mm-hmm. I do think another is the human cost of silence. We often don't talk about how silence itself creates harm. Mm-hmm. When we don't name what's not working, whether it's in housing, policing, or access to health care, we unintentionally keep people stuck. Naming it doesn't break trust, hiding it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
Absolutely.
Real powerful. Kim, why is honesty so important in the community?
That's a really good question. I think there's more than one answer to that. We can spot whenever somebody's not being honest. It's kind of like kids. They can tell whenever somebody's being not true. The only way that we can trust each other is if we're transparent and vulnerable with each other. Vulnerability creates connectedness.
It's also hard.
It is very hard. But when we're honest about what we're struggling with, not just us as individuals, but the systems that we live in, we give other people permission to be honest too. Mm-hmm. And so when somebody steps out and becomes vulnerable and honest, then that just makes it a more comfortable space for other people to step out and become honest. Mm-hmm. That's the way that we're going to connect.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Speaking of vulnerability, that's one of the most profound things with working with partners is those kind of truth talks, those hard moments where you have to step out of your comfort zone because nobody wants to look bad, nobody wants to fail, but some of the greatest successes have come out of those vulnerable moments where we're just recognizing each other's weaknesses and working to build each other up together.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a good point because the vulnerability creates that space where, especially if we have the courage to go first in it and then share what that is and be accountable for the things that we can be accountable for, not everything, that allows us to move forward in a new way where if there is a stumbling block or something hasn't been working efficiently, that we don't have to double down on the mistakes that we've done, but rather how do we come together? What are the solutions? How do we take individual people out of it and put maybe systems in those places and talk about systemically how can we make this benefit everybody? Think about the solutions rather than maybe missions that we want to stick to, our own egos that are hard to get rid of, or pride. Silos.
Yes, silos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what I hope that people find on this show is that we're going to be raw, we're going to be genuine, we're going to be open and honest and transparent. Also going to be taking accountability for what we can take accountability for, while always keeping hope at the center and looking forward to how can we move towards solutions together rather than seeing each other as enemies or competitors in this space, when I think at the end of the day we all want quality of life of people in Evansville to be better. We want community to be stronger,
right?
And we want things to be accessible to all. So thank you for that, Savannah.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, or do you have any approaches? Because obviously everybody approaches tough conversations and vulnerable situations differently. When conversation gets heated and there's a topic that you're discussing that everybody at the table is passionate about, how do you diffuse that? How do you try to get everybody at that table collectively to see that we're trying to move forward together when there's a lot of emotion and experience or it could be trauma involved with whatever the topic is?
What a good question.
Yeah, really good question. For me, all of that needs to be on the table. I think that's where the transparency comes in at, is where if we can show up as our full selves, that allows us to see people and where they're coming from. Once we see where people are at, we then know how to interact with that. We know what they're bringing to the table, maybe what some of those triggers are. We can even hear what their solutions are for the problems. And so I think in moments where things can be tense, where things are heightened, where emotions are involved, the best thing we can do is find those common grounds. I think we have more common ground than we give ourselves credit for. And so, although we're going to have differences, although we're going to have different beliefs and things that we're rooted in, the main thing is to be able to find those common avenues that at least we can find common ground on, and then figure out from that point on what does it look like to move forward, not with our own agenda, our own pride, but what's best for the community that we're serving, if that's what we're here for. Ladies, thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll dig into the origins of the Collective Action Network, or CAN, and why it needs to exist for the collaborative platforms and spaces. So stay with us.
What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the how behind this show. As mentioned, at the core of CANdid Conversation is a coalition of sorts called the Collective Action Network, or CAN. This isn't a nonprofit or an organization. It's a movement, a living network of residents, nonprofits, city departments, public safety teams, healthcare systems, and advocates working together. As mentioned, at the core of CANdid Conversation is a coalition of sorts called the Collective Action Network, or CAN. This isn't a nonprofit or an organization. It's a movement, a living network of residents, nonprofits, city departments, public safety teams, healthcare systems, and advocates working together on our community's most pressing issues. But this didn't just appear overnight. It started with bold ideas, with failures and successes, and the questions of what if we stopped working in silos and started aligning our efforts towards a shared goal? What if we centered the people most impacted by these issues at the center of what we're trying to do? And to help unpack this, where Collective Action Network came from and why it matters, I want to bring Savannah on board. She's been here since the beginning to share a little bit about that. Again, Savannah is the CEO of Echo Housing and Community Development, the organization serving as the backbone of this effort. Under her leadership, Echo has expanded far beyond housing, investing in community partnerships, prevention, and innovation. Savannah, again, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me.
Thank you. So the Collective Action Network was born out of necessity. For years, we were all working hard, but separately. And when you're dealing with complex issues like homelessness, mental health crisis, gun violence, substance use, generational poverty, trauma, or the inability to access services or systems, you start to realize that no single agency can do it alone. And we talked before a little bit about silos, but we really recognized that was a huge problem. As we looked at the next chapter of Echo and our role in the community, we started asking some hard but necessary questions. What was working and what was not? And how do we build something that really reflects the needs of the people we're trying to serve? So in early 2023 or thereabouts, I began having conversations with our Chief Impact and Finance Officer, Eric Tilkemeyer. Eric brings years of experience in community development from outside of our region. And together we started imagining what a more connected, more accountable, and more responsive model could look like in Evansville. Eric and I both assumed our roles at the same time. His experience from outside the community and my experience on the ground were two very different perceptions of how things operate in Southwest Indiana. Since 2016, ECHO has been the lead agency for the Federal Promise Zone designation for our region. And so that role gave us a front row seat to the impact of collaboration, but it also revealed some limitations. One of the biggest was the Promise Zone boundaries themselves. They were geographic zones that were defined by HUD almost a decade ago, based on data that no longer reflects the realities of what is happening on ground today.
Yeah.
Communities shift, needs evolve, and so our efforts were still confined to a static map. And we realized that wasn't going to work anymore. So with the Promise Zone designation set to sunset in 2026, we wanted to expand momentum. So we began an internal evaluation and really a community-wide listening effort. It was a lot of hours and a lot of time, but it was extremely insightful. We spoke with dozens of partners from every sector, nonprofits, public safety, healthcare, education, government, many others. We listened carefully to what they were saying, but most importantly, we listened to what the residents were saying. And these were very much one-on-one conversations. This was not a giant forum. We tried to make the spaces trusting. We took the listening role. We didn't just dominate the conversation, but we wanted to hear what stakeholders, partners, and residents felt was going well in the community and how we could achieve greater success together. So within our own agency and the voices, hundreds of individuals we serve, members of our agency tenant council who have lived experiences, what we heard was very clear. Navigating systems was extremely confusing, exhausting, and very discouraging.
Amen.
It's very difficult. Residents told us they felt unheard, unseen, passed over because they felt they didn't fit in the right neighborhood, meet the correct requirements to access those services. So we asked ourselves, what if we redefined the boundaries? What if the network was not limited to just a few census tracts relegated by the government? What if it was expansive and inclusive? That became the foundation for the Collective Action Network, which we had several different names prior to CAN forming and listened to partners as well on what could we call this kind of coalition, this group of partners all and residents all working together. So that was launched in 2024 to sustain and expand the collaborative environment. Collaboration was the key that we felt surfaced from the work within the Promise Zone, and we wanted to enhance, strengthen, and move forward the collaborative environment within the community. So CAN is not confined to a map. It's designed to serve any part of our region where there's a need that exists and to bring together anyone willing to work towards solutions, from system leaders to everyday residents. And I think that's one of the most powerful aspects thus far is the ability to bridge that connection between residents and the systems themselves and the individuals within those systems. And it allows those organizations that work again within a system to listen to what the resident needs. And I think that's one of the most critical and strongest points of CAN.
So important, yeah.
It's not about where someone lives. It's about building a stronger, more connected community for everyone. So that's how CAN began. Again, it's not just a network of organizations, but a network of trust and shared responsibility. It's about having those hard conversations and how can we make Evansville and Southwest Indiana and the region a better place for everybody. Despite ECHO being the backbone for the network, we have adopted the collective impact model. So really is the backbone. We're just trying to do the work behind the scenes and help out our partners and engage with those residents and listen to everybody and build those connections. So no one system or person has more power or authority over another. So
yeah, no, that's powerful. And thanks for sharing that short yet impactful history of CAN. It's clear that the formation of CAN wasn't just about creating another initiative, another 501c3.
No.
It was about building
You
trust.
don't need another one.
Yeah, right. It's about breaking silos and truly centering the voices of those most impacted. That foundation continues to drive everything forward, and I believe that in the spaces that I find myself, that's what I'm seeing and experiencing. Savannah, you mentioned collective impact, and for those who are just maybe hearing that for the first time, what does collective impact actually mean? In its simplest terms, collective impact is when a bunch of different people and organizations, whether that's schools, nonprofit, churches, hospitals, the police, city, and most importantly, residents, all come together, work on the same problem in the same direction instead of everyone doing their own thing separately. So rather than one group trying to fix housing and another trying to fix mental health and another working with youth, We all sit at the same table, share what we know, and make a plan together. Because oftentimes each one of those in itself is multifaceted, and not one thing is the silver bullet, if you will, to solving that. And so, again, having folks show up at the decision-making and solution table looks like doing what you do best alongside others who are doing just that. And if we can plug in to that solution with what we have to offer, I think the impact is far greater than spreading ourselves thin and one organization trying to do it all.
Yeah.
This leaves, no one left guessing, and no one has to figure out things alone. It's a true collaboration built on trust where your voice matters just as much as anyone else's, because people living in the issues are the ones that know them best. And so making sure that is there. And so that's what collective impact is all about, moving in the same direction with shared goals, shared data, shared responsibility, and accountability, so we actually get to see the tangible impact that's at the end of what we're striving towards. And as we continue the series, you'll hear more from CAN, partners, and residents about what this looks like in action and how that collaborative spirit is changing lives across southwestern Indiana.
I have a quick question for you, Merrick. I know that you have been part of previous collaborative environments years past. What do you feel is different about this, about CAN and this opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. What feels different, and you're right, I have been a part of things in the past. I'll say this, collective impact, where I've seen that work the best is on a neighborhood level. And so when we talk about collective impact as a city, we're talking about very big issues, and sometimes not a quick fix, most times not a quick fix. What I've done and seen in neighborhood revitalization work, at least here locally, is that it is being voiced and led by neighbors. And so folks aren't coming in saying this is what you need or your neighborhood or community lacks this, but rather an asset approach where you come into the neighborhood, you see the people and the resources there, and based off of that, what can we make happen? And so just starting off with a little bit, we're able to see that we do have assets and that we can build that out. At that point, again, we plug in those assets and those gifts in the right areas, and then we hope to find stakeholders then that can come alongside and support that initiative from the inside out. What I feel about CAN is that this isn't just a coalition of organizations. Residents aren't an afterthought. They're not a checkbox. They're the reason that this initiative and movement exists. And should be the standard in which we measure ourselves moving forward, is the participation and listening and implementing the things that we're hearing from residents alongside who they're partnering with.
So you had mentioned stakeholders or organizations is directing residents. This is what we're going to do for the community instead of listening to them. It makes me think, just at the nonprofit level, I mean, this could span any stakeholder organization, but money is always a concern. And how do you get funding for programs and for staff? And you get so consumed with the money piece that you forget to listen to those you're serving to hear what they need. And so there's oftentimes a misalignment between the funding you received and what those you're serving actually need from that. And so I think it's a good way to kind of shift your mindset around how you serve the community, is instead of chasing the dollars, listen to the residents.
Yep.
Right. And then the dollars will come.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Then you already have something in place that you can look for funding for, rather than looking for funding for something that's not already existing.
Correct.
And having to create that.
And having to create it. Yeah. So, you kind of answered one of my questions a little bit about, why it's important that residents are at the table. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit. So few places and communities put residents at the table and really listen, not just placate them. So can you speak a little bit more on that?
I would love to speak more on that. And I would like to try to paint a picture of this. Oftentimes we have decision-making tables, and at those decision-making tables are the people with influence, the people with money, the people with a network. And based off of that, you often end up with a top-down approach. To your point,
Right.
Savannah, we're creating these programs or we're chasing these dollars, and then we're trying to implement into a culture and a people group And then we sit here and asking, why isn't there participation in our program? Or
Right. Yeah.
this is what they said that they wanted, and we created it for them and delivered it to them, and now they're not using it. Oftentimes, I feel like those same residents and those that we're trying to affect don't have the opportunity to speak into that in a way that for them in their particular context or the people that they do life alongside. The paradigm shift happens when we then have those residents and people on the ground who are not only voicing and identifying the concerns, but also bringing solutions to those same concerns and problems. We have those decision-making tables. Most of the time, people aren't invited to it. Every now and again, folks are invited, but oftentimes maybe just to check a box or to say that we did what we were supposed to do before we implemented the program that we decided is best. So instead of that, flip it on its head. We have folks being the change that they hope to see in their own communities. They're providing solutions, and they're taking action on that. And what would it look like then for those same decision makers, people with influence and network and capital, to come alongside those residents with solutions and support that, rather than us always asking for folks to come to our table?
Right.
So, Kim, to answer your question, I think it's important for residents to be at the table, to be the decision makers, or at least partake in that decision making process and bring the solutions there, because the top-down approach has failed us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, guys, thanks for sharing the short yet impactful history of CAN. It's clear that the formation of CAN wasn't just about creating another initiative. It was about building trust, breaking silos, and truly centering the voices of those most impacted. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk to you about how our listeners can get involved, whether you're a resident, you're a neighbor, or you're just someone who wants to be a part of the change. We'll break down how your voice can be heard and how your impact can be felt.
What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
Welcome back. Now that we're shifting gears to talk about how residents across our community can get involved, and more importantly, how their voices are not only being heard, but helping to shape real decisions and direction through Collective Action Network. Whether you're new to the community work or just wondering where you fit in, this next part is for you. It's one thing to talk about programs and systems, but we believe that most important voices in this work belongs to the people living it. We heard just a bit ago from Savannah with Echo and how the formation of CAN was built on resident voices and how important it is for collective impact that residents have a seat at every table. This is the foundation for CANdid Voices as well, the information gathering portion of our communication through CANdid Conversations. Beginning last month, we asked residents across the city to share their thoughts, what issues matter most, and in what community. CANdid Voices will be a part of every episode moving forward, but we're also taking it one step further. We'll be hitting the streets with a mic, meeting people where they are, whether it's on a bus, at the bus station, a school event, or a community dinner. We're going to be out in the streets listening. As we've heard today, real change starts with real voices, and that means yours as well. If you're a resident looking to get involved with the Collective Action Network, there are plenty of ways to do it. You can show up in person to community conversations, pop-up events, and neighborhood meetings, or you can just share your thoughts on the online forum, through the surveys, social media, or even quick feedback forms on our website. We want to know what matters to you the most, what's impacting your family, your block, your neighborhood. Your voice isn't just welcomed, it's actually needed here. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, Kim will provide the resident report during each segment. So with that being said, Kim, can you give us an overview of what issues residents voiced as most pressing to them?
I would love to. I've been looking forward to this.
Nice.
So, yes, we've been collecting your voices, everybody out there that has shared with us on our online questionnaire tell us what you think. It's great to be here with our very first edition of the Resident Report.
Love it.
I feel like there should be like
The
some
drum
special
roll,
music. Yeah, special music or something with that. But we're going to just take a moment to lift up some of the voices that we've heard from our neighbors and what we're hearing from them. So in Jacobsville, all of us at the table here work in Jacobsville and have spent a lot of time in Jacobsville. And so a lot of these things weren't surprises to us because we're around this all the time. But connectedness is a big deal. It's the lack of it that people are expressing, needing more connectedness and safe way to travel. So, not everybody has a car. So a lot of people are walking or riding a bus. Some of those people are in wheelchairs. And if you have walked down a sidewalk in some of our neighborhoods, you would quickly notice that a wheelchair would not travel that sidewalk very well. So they pointed out the poor sidewalk conditions that make basic movement unsafe. And you think about the older adults and folks with disabilities, safe sidewalks are everything, right? So there's also a strong call to access fresh, affordable food. So for folks without cars, public transportation is expensive and unreliable, and they're trying to rely on it just to buy groceries. And so it shouldn't be the norm for that to be such a struggle.
I do know. So some years ago, the Dollar General Market was installed in the Forge on Main.
Yeah.
And just from hearing from our agency tenant council and residents is it's not always stocked because so many people are trying to access those foods.
Yeah.
They run out often.
Right.
And so then again, when the majority of those we're serving within our eco housing population struggle with transportation, again, disabling conditions, getting access to food is very difficult.
Right, right. Well, and I've also heard directly with conversations that I've had about how sometimes the food there, it's great that it's there and they can only stock what they can stock, I guess, but also it's expensive.
Yes.
And not all the same nutritious food that you could get at like a Walmart or a grocery store. The expense, the lack of variety and nutrition is quite a big deal.
It is. And I would just like to insert here, we don't want to just talk about problems.
Right.
We want to also celebrate the good that's taking place too. And so I just want to give a shout out to Urban Seeds, what they've done the last couple of years and what we partnered with in Jacobsville is to be able to set up shop in a highly trafficked area and provide fresh and affordable produce.
Yeah.
What's really cool about that is that they get this from various places, but in particular the market on Main that takes place on Wednesdays throughout the summer.
Yeah, right.
And so they bring that straight to people where they can access it. And it's usually $5, and we see a lot of people paying for it. So it's not even that these are hands out for people. There is dignity in the food that you eat and how you're able to come across that and purchase it. And so that is taking place.
I think
It's a
they
huge
also,
success.
it
Lots of
is.
residents have used
I think
it.
they can also use EBT, can't they?
They can.
Yeah, right.
And we've
Right,
seen
so
more
that's
people
helpful.
use cash than EBT or and cards.
Because
So,
it's affordable.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if it's affordable, I want to pay for it. Let's move on to the South Side.
Okay.
So we've heard a different kind of need with the South Side about visibility and inclusion. So there are residents who have asked for more support for the LGBTQIA plus community, including safe emergency shelter.
Okay.
We had a very vocal person, which I so appreciated, let us know exactly what that they have gone through, and safety is everything. There's a longing for services that are culturally competent, welcoming, and affirming, not just in theory, but in practice.
Right.
And so,
Seeing people as people, right?
seeing people as people, you're a human being with the eyes, nose, mouth, right? It's we're just people. One voice that really stood out said, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but we're not asking for special treatment. We're just asking to feel safe when we're at our most vulnerable point. And it's sad to me to think that maybe somebody does not feel safe. That cultural competency is everything to help everyone feel safe. We've also heard resident concerns around public safety and crime rates, but positive outcomes from the Community One's Love Your Neighbor initiative.
Ooh,
So,
Community One.
yeah, Community One.
Yeah.
Getting it done. All right. Well, we have some positive things happening, but we still need to keep in mind how we're going to address public safety and crime rates. On the west side, the west
Yay.
side was vocal.
They were vocal.
Yeah, so thank you, West Side, for sending in your comments. That focus was also on safety and infrastructure. I know there's a lot of construction going on over there right now, too. So residents talked about rising drug activity and crime. So again, we're talking about crime, and particularly in neighborhoods that haven't seen any investment in years. So
That's
highlighting those
truthful.
neighborhoods. Yeah, you live on the west side, don't you?
I do. It's very family oriented, but it is very aged.
Yeah. Streets and sidewalks in poor condition, and that adds to the feeling of neglect. You know, whenever the sidewalks are all broken up and you can't traverse them very easily, that feels like neglect,
Right.
really. So the thing that was most striking is the sense of disconnection. And we've seen this in other parts of the city too. We heard that many residents feel like they're not engaged, not informed, and not invited into community conversations. So here we are having those
Yeah.
community conversations.
Yeah.
We want to engage you, invite you, and you inform us,
Yeah.
Right.
and we listen. So then finally, talking a little bit about the north side, we heard concerns that echo Jacobsville, transportation access to basic resources like food and grocery stores. That's a growing issue for people living outside the city's urban core. I live on the north side, and if I didn't have a car, I would not have access to a grocery store. And I noticed there's no sidewalks in a lot of areas. I've noticed that too going north St. Joe, where
Oh, yeah.
there's the trailer parks up there that have no sidewalk. But a DG Market just went in up there
is.
too.
There is a
did it?
DG
Yeah, it
Market.
did.
But they still got to get to it.
They still have to get
Yeah.
to it. And so without a sidewalk, if you're forced to walk on the street, then that's dangerous. I know that sadly some people have been killed walking that road. So I just feel like when we're talking outside of urban areas,
Yeah.
we've got to pay attention to how folks are getting to those needs.
Yes.
So neighbors are wanting to stay in their homes but can't get to what they need safely and consistently. They don't want to move, but they also want to get to where they can go.
And public transportation is
Yeah.
either non-existent or extremely limited. The further
The further out you go,
directions,
yeah, right. Yeah, it's very limited. So all of these stories are a little bit different, but there's common threads. They want safe access to food, to housing, to services, and to one another. And they want to be seen and heard, not once, but regularly. And we hope that what we're doing here really helps make that happen.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Ken, thank you so much
Yeah,
for sharing
my
that
pleasure.
and being a part of this where we get to hear directly from residents. And again, this isn't just a one-time thing. This is a space where we get to carry these conversations forward, and where they fit into different things taking place, then we can take the necessary actions to elevate their voices and work towards those solutions that we have, or at least start thinking about them. Stick with us after the break. We're going to learn more about how to plug in and what candid conversation looks like moving forward.
What happens when community meets conversation? You get real stories, honest dialogue, and hear voices from your neighborhood. This is CANdid Conversations, where change begins with listening.
Welcome back. So what's next? As we look ahead in the coming episodes, we'll tackle the issues that surface through not only the candid voices, but also back in April, we had the opportunity to put on the first CAN Summit. And essentially what that is, like you've heard time and time again today, it was rooted in residents. We had over 100 folks participate for a very short notice event that was cross-sector. But the cool thing about that was that a third of everybody that showed up were residents. So again,
Yeah.
making sure that the thing that we care about the most is always at the forefront. And so some of those things that came out of it was a a group violence intervention and the youth care center, and other partners coming together to be able to tackle gun violence here in our city, in particular with the youth. We've been able to also move forward a conversation about a community land trust and what that means for a community to be able to have power and voice in what comes in to their community. Quite frankly, we've experienced a lot of gentrification here in Evansville. I can call it development if you would like. But when things come into a place and changes the culture, and the folks who live there no longer feel like what has been brought in is for them, naturally you gravitate away from that. So they find themselves in other places, and what used to be in one particular area is no longer that. And so communities who are in a position to leverage a land trust will be able to say what comes into the space, what affordability looks like in their neighborhood, and how they do community with one another. We've also reintroduced transitional housing. The summit conversation reminded us that transitional housing can be and should have a place in Evansville, again, giving families time, stability, supportive services while they rebuild. And there's a really cool project, and one that we hope to share a lot more about, where mothers and those with kids can then transition into places before something more stable. It's really cool just to see how this continuum of our housing is starting to come together slowly but surely. We're also looking to tackle the very expansive and growing mental health issue here locally.
So important.
So important.
We hear that over and over again.
Between every people group as well, which, for those listening, your mental health matters. And we do have resources here in Evansville. We would love to connect you to those if that is something that you feel is applicable to you, not just the people that you're serving. Youth empowerment, which goes into also preventing youth crime and gun violence and gang violence within those youth, giving them things to do. Our youth aren't problems to fix. They're leaders today. If we listen to them, create the spaces where they can flourish, I think we're going to see a lot better statistics in the violence that we have around those same youth. But again, it's multifaceted. Some would even say that it is on purpose, that we have a system that, whether for adults or for kids, that sends them through the system and ends up in jail and prison. And we could be more mindful of a more restorative approach as we talk about these things. And so we're launching 2 ways for you to get plugged in. All right, we mentioned Candid Voices. If you see us out, stop by, speak to us. You might just hear your concern on the air or on social media, or maybe you might even just be invited to come on here and have a conversation with us in real time. And there's also Candid Contributor of the Month. So every month we'll lift up a resident or a practitioner or organization showing up, speaking out, and helping lead from where they are. We'll say it again and again. We don't want to just be about complaints and negativity here. We believe that there's always a solution to the problem. And we have plenty of people around our city who are being a part of the solution rather than part of that problem. We kicked things off with the history of the Collective Action Network and its relevancy to our community. Then we sat down and talked with Savannah to learn about the Collective Action Network, or CAN, how it was born, and how it's not a top-down plan, but from a commitment to listen, collaborate, and uplift the voices of those most impacted by the challenges we face. We also talked about how we can get involved, whether that's showing up to a local meeting, sharing your experiences online, or just starting a conversation in your own community. Kim Armstrong shared that we have resident voice coming through this resident report, which included honest feedback from residents leading up to this segment, and will continue moving forward, showing that every voice matters and every story has power. And as we look ahead, Candid Conversations will continue to spotlight the people, partnerships, and possibilities shaping our region. From grassroots advocates to citywide collaborations, this is just the beginning, and we are excited and looking forward to everybody participating along the way. This is a thing that will take time, that will take intentionality, that will even seem slow at times. But all good things take time, and what we're building here is something that can be sustained long term. It's not just about programs, but it's about posture. How do we present ourselves where we find ourselves, whether it's the people on the streets, whether it's people within our networks, within our workplaces. How do we posture ourselves so that the best step forward is collaboration? And so join us for the next episode, airing July 19th from 8 to 9 a.m. on WEOA. We have listened to our neighbors and partners who have identified resident engagement, connectedness, as well as pressing issues in our community. And we look forward to sharing how it impacts members of our community and what work is being done to address it. So thank you for tuning in to this first episode. We love to have you back. There are several ways also that you can reach out, whether that's social media, whether that's WEOA, whether that's Echo Housing and Community Development. I'm out there floating around the internet, so if you find my number or email, you can feel free to reach out to me as well. Again, I'm all about the conversations and meeting people where they're at, and I think that makes this place better for that. So keep showing up, keep speaking out, and keep building something better together. Remember, this is a place for honesty, hope, and shared humanity. And so until next time, stay real, stay respectful, stay candid.